Hello again, Fishalots. I get asked all the time, hey, what is the best beginner setup for me to learn how to fish or even to teach my child how to fish? And so if you have a question like that on the best type of fishing and best gear and equipment to get you started, this video is for you. So tune in and let's get into it. And all right, so the first step of this answer is to really get into ultralight. Ultralight fishing is absolutely one of the most perfect ways to introduce yourself or your child into the sport. You're using very small rods and reels. They're lightweight. They're generally inexpensive, using very low diameter line, and you're using very low profile baits and lures. That being said, that's going to trigger a lot of bites and afford you a lot of opportunity on how to learn how to detect bites, catch fish, and reel in fish. And that is the essentials of getting into the sport and really learning how to fish. Another great thing about ultralight fishing is the lessons that you learn from this is easily able to be transitioned into bigger applications of fishing, whether that's largemouth bass or you're getting on a big lake, a river, or even saltwater fishing. A lot of the fishing fundamentals that you will learn ultralight fishing can be applied to these larger areas of fish, larger bodies of water, or just larger fish in general. And you'd be shocked at how many people that I turn on to ultralight that easily just go to catching big bass, striped bass, bluefish, you name it, they can catch it once they learn the basic fundamentals of fishing via this gear right here. All right, so let's get into the gear and what you need to really be concerned about when you're learning how to do this type of fishing. First and foremost, a very overlooked aspect of fishing, especially for children, are these Zebco push-button fishing reels and rod applications. Now, I got this from Dick's Sporting Good. It cost me $16, and the best part about this is for children, it really teaches them how to cast. You push down the button, it releases the line, as you can see. You hold down the button, and as you go to cast, okay, the children will learn when to release the line in order to get your lure or bait or bobber, whatever you're fishing out into the body of the water and catching fish. These usually come with 10-pound monofilament, which is perfect for young children. You don't have to worry about fish breaking you off, and of course you don't have to worry about getting caught in snags and breaking lures off, things like this. So this is absolutely a perfect beginner style fishing. This is ultralight for children. All right, now let's talk about my next rod and reel setup that I really love for ultralight fishing. And here you go. This is just a perfect setup for any Fishalot out there. It doesn't break the bank. It's great. This is a Kastking Valiant Eagle 1000. Great for bluegill, bass, whatever. I got 2-pound test line. This is SOS trout line on here. It's absolutely perfect for triggering bites. 2-pound test line will trigger way more bites than anything else because the fish are not going to detect this line as much. And of course, this is an Okuma Celilo fishing rod. This thing altogether probably costs you about 50 or 60 bucks. It's absolutely perfect for fishing. Then don't get up. I don't want you to exhaust yourself. There you go, bud. Yeah, you're reeling in a fish. Nice job. This whole setup is perfect for little kids. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Great job. Great job. You got him? He's pulling. He's pulling.
You got him.
All right. And here it is. This is my favorite combo for ultralight fishing. This is a St. Croix Panfish series ultralight fishing rod. This is about 6 feet long, so it's a little bit longer rod. It's a one-piece rod. It's all graphite, so it's super, super sensitive, but this will cost you about 126 bucks. Now, the reason why this is so important for learning how to fish for 126 bucks is it's so sensitive, you can learn how to feel very subtle bites from a variety of smaller fish. Let's say bluegill, crappie, bass. They're not always just going to absolutely destroy your lure or your bait. There's going to be a lot of times when they're very finicky, and this rod is ideal for picking up those finicky bites and ensuring that you could catch even the most lethargic or inactive of fish. But this is an absolute great rod setup for that. I use it in all my videos. You can see even little Ben using this rod when he was 3 years old out in the local ponds. Yeah, you're reeling in the fish all by yourself. Whoa. And that's paired with an Okuma Ceymar Ultralight C10 fishing reel. Now, this reel only weighs in at about 50 bucks. The rod is 126 bucks, and I do that on purpose. I do not put as much value, especially for ultralight or inshore fishing, on the fishing reels. This is a line management system. What I really want this reel to do is allow me to send line out and allow me to retrieve line, and I have the drag set just right. Now this reel is a little bit more expensive than the Kastking Valiant Eagle, and that's because the drag system in here is much smoother. And you know, that just comes down to personal preference. You don't need even a $50 reel. That $30 Kastking will do you just fine, but this is really a combo that I prefer. Again, I have this on 2-pound test line. I don't know if you could see it because it's so thin in diameter, and that is really why I use it, because it will trigger just so many bites. Now, an extremely underrated rod for beginners fishing is, of course, Ugly Stik. You'll hear a lot of negative feedback on Ugly Stik from bass fishalots, largemouth bass fishalots, because they say that this isn't that sensitive of fishing rods. But Shakespeare, who makes Ugly Stik, has actually developed a variety of rods to improve that sensitivity. These are called composite rod. Ugly Stik also makes a lot of fiberglass rods. Those are super durable. They're not as sensitive, but you could step on them, bang them, jam them in your car. They're not going to break, so they're ideal for beginner fishalots because, let's face it, you're not going to be super careful with these fishing rods. So check out Ugly Stik. The Ultralight Series rods are only $15. So again, if you pair this Ultralight Shakespeare Ugly Stik rod with a Kastking Valiant Eagle, you are just looking at a dynamite combination that isn't breaking the bank and is allowing you to fish anywhere where you live. Ponds, lakes, rivers, you name it. Just a great combo. All right, let's talk about everybody's favorite subject, and that is fishing lures and rigs to get you started. Now, probably the rig that I'm going to recommend the most is just simply a slip float, and this is just a type of bobber, and it's an ultralight jig head with some form of soft plastic or bait attached to it. And you can see this right here. This is a 164-ounce Bobby Garland jig head, and this is just a very light, ultralight style peg float. You simply remove this peg right in here in the top and stick it into the float, and you can move this up and down your line. And this offers you a number of advantages. One is, again, this gives you bite indication, right? So when the fish takes this and this goes under the water, of course, that's going to let you know that a fish has your hook, and that is an indicator of you to set the hook. The other thing this allows you to do is determine at what depth these fish are laying, and that's why a slip float is just so great. If the fish are shallower, I'll move this up closer to the hook, and if the fish are deeper, I'll move this up on my main line. All you do is take your line, you tug it, and it moves up and down your line. So for finding out where the fish are in terms of depth, that's going to be the fish's strike zone, what we call the strike zone, where they're looking to feed. And of course, a small little jig head with some kind of soft plastic or bait is absolutely ideal for beginning fishing. Now, so your next question is probably, well, what do I put on the end of that Bobby Garland jig head? And what I really recommend are these small 1 to 2 inch baits. Right here, this is a crappie magnet. I use this all the time for crappie fishing, bluegill fishing, bass fishing. I just catch such a wide variety of fish with these type of lures. And this right here is gulp minnows. I'll open this up right here. Now, gulp minnows, these are 1 inch silver gulp minnows, and really the advantage of the container that I have this in is that liquid right there. So the advantage of gulp minnows is that they come in this liquid, they're scented, and fish absolutely go nuts over this stuff, and it's really great for catching all sorts of fish. All right, so now we're fishing with a 1 inch gulp minnow, right? I'll show you some tactics here. Oh, there it is right there. There you go, see? But just make sure that once you open the package that you know how to seal it up. Make sure it's waterproof, because if that gulp juice gets all over your bait or your lures or whatever, it just tends to make a mess. So these are 2 soft plastics that I really recommend for those very light jig heads. All right, and something that I talk a lot about is soft plastics, and what these really are search baits. The reasons why these are just so advantageous to beginner fishing is because you could cast them out with a bobber and they'll do their thing dangling there. You could jig the bobber just a little bit and it'll trigger bites. You could jig these on the bottom, or or quite frankly, you could just reel them straight in with a slow retrieve. So for beginner fish-a-lots, things like paddle tails, you're just going to reel it in slow. That paddle tail is going to do all the work, and you could trigger just a ton of bites. For something like this, you just go out, you buy yourself a 1/4 ounce jig head. Make sure that the hook comes out in the middle of the lure here, and a 1/4 ounce jig head is just ideal for a variety of beginner fishing, just because it covers you in both shallow water, very shallow water, and deeper water where you might be fishing. Now, some more soft plastic lures like would pair up with those Bobby Garland jig heads would be something like Bobby Garland crappie baits. So these are 2-inch baits. These are chartreuse colors. Again, these are just mimic little minnows, as you can see right there. That's really all you're doing. You put those on those ultralight jig heads, and again, the perfect search bait. You could reel these in straight. You could jig them with a bobber. You could fish them off the bottom. It's just so versatile. That's why I recommend it for beginner fish-a-lots. These zoom baits are absolutely ideal. These are tiny fluke zoom baits. These are 3-inch baits. Again, they're going to catch you just a little bit larger fish, but you could put them with that bobber system. You could use them with slightly larger jig heads. Again, or you could just use them with those Bobby Garland jig heads, just like these baits right here. Now, you may ask, what colors do I use? And these are basically it. So if you're beginning fishing, what I would recommend is dark, light, and natural colors. That's it. So dark colors would be something like black or dark brown, something like that. Lighter colors would be something like these ghost white colors, just plain white. You'd be amazed at how they show up in the water. And of course, chartreuse, which is going to show up in water. Now, your natural colors, like something like this is literally called bait fish, and it's meant to look as natural as possible. This is when you would use colors like these in very clear conditions like we have today. It's bright, it's sunny, and you have clear watercolor or water clarity. For something like this is the same. These are more natural looking baits. This is called baby shad. Again, this would be used on days like today, very clear outside with clear water conditions. Now, something like this, a bright white bait, this is going to use when it's very overcast, or you're going to use this when the water is cloudy and it's overcast. So any combination of low light conditions, you would use something like this, or very cloudy water when it's also overcast, I would use something like white, or of course chartreuse, because it'll show up in the water column. And black is an absolute great lure to use if you're fishing at night or you're fishing in very dark conditions. Like if it's very cloudy and rainy and you have dark watercolor, that's when I would use black. So in terms of colors, just keep them super simple, super basic. Use light, dark, natural, and I just told you when to use them, and you should be just fine. And all right, fish-a-lots, if you want to see this gear and these lures and tactics in action, make sure to click on these end cards right here, where I show you exactly how to use these, exactly how to trigger bites, and exactly how to catch more fish. All right, fish-a-lots, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you out there on the water.